What's going on, guys? So we're back for the next installment of Godzilla smacking the Marvel Universe with Godzilla Infinity Roar. And I got a few thoughts to share on this one. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so this story is the direct continuation of Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe, which is not to be confused with the Godzilla vs. Marvel stories that we covered, because that was something totally separate. And really, from what I'm seeing so far, Infinity Roar just could have been a continuation, as opposed to being its own thing, but here we are. But nonetheless, just as a really quick recap as far as where the last story left off and where this one's picking up, at the end of the last story we saw, after many attempts of trying to defeat Godzilla, the heroes were like, you know what, we're just gonna throw him out there on the backside of space, which is where Knull then found Godzilla and was like, you know what, I think we're both after the same thing. Just based on how much destruction Godzilla has caused, and Knull wanting to get rid of all life and light in the universe, so he could return it back to the peaceful abyss that it once was, because he likes it dark. But now when we come back and some time has passed, we end up finding out what has happened since then. When we see the Galactic Senate going off because the heroes of Earth have now made Godzilla everyone's problem. And this goes through stages, because at first everyone agrees that Earth is awful, and I mean there's not much to argue about that. And you have some people here suggesting an attack on Earth since their homeworld was destroyed by Godzilla, but that idea is shot down because attacking Earth has always led to disastrous consequences. But then this leads to a bit of an update when one of the Skrull senators mentioned that their problem is much worse than just Godzilla, and how this isn't just one problem, but it's two. Because he says here it's not just that terrifying god named Zilla, but it's the full might of the symbiote race, powered by none other than the evil god Knull. Entire worlds are falling, first to the kaiju, and then the defeated are assimilated by symbiotes. They have so far laid waste to several star systems already, and the creature seems to be carving a path right toward, and as he's saying this, we see Godzilla in this huge orb being transported by Knull's Grendels. Just before we zoom in to Knull, who finishes his sentence, when Knull gives the order for his symbiotes to deploy Godzilla on the intergalactic empire of Wakanda, which in this universe is very similar to any of the other ones we've seen, though it's about to have a lot more in common with the intergalactic empire we saw in Alien vs. Avengers. But now this continues saying Burning T'Challa is the capital city of the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. Long before T'Challa became the Black Panther of Earth, Wakandans established dominion out in the stars. Today, the empire's greatest threat arrives, which of course is Godzilla. But alongside of this, we're also given an explanation to why Knull's targeting the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. And it mainly focuses on Godzilla's beef with Black Panther, and we'll talk more about where that comes from in a moment. But when I first read this and I saw that Knull chose this location as his first target, this had me thinking like, man, is it possible that at one point in this universe, T'Challa used the hand of Bast on Knull and whooped Knull so bad that it had him like, hey, I need my lick back? Because if this was incorporated in some kind of way, much like what we saw in the Black Panther King in Black one-shot, I think it would have made for a nice build-up. Because in the main Marvel universe, this one-shot was focused on showing us Wakanda's solution to pushing Knull's Grendels and symbiotes out of Wakanda by using the Hand of Bast, which is built to kill the Phoenix. And it was great for what it was in the one-shot, but had this been a bigger deal in an alternate universe, then it would have been crazy to see. And it would have given Godzilla and Knull a common enemy. Because from what we're told as far as the main reason why Knull sent Godzilla to the Wakandan Empire, this basically just goes back to their agreement, with Knull seeing this as a way to give Godzilla what he wants, since the Black Panther led the battle that removed Godzilla from Earth. And again, Knull can't control Godzilla. So in a way, Knull's like, okay, I'm gonna give him what he wants and hopefully he'll help me get what I want. Because Knull's trying to get rid of everybody anyway. And at one point it even says here that the King of Monsters will forever hate Black Panther after T'Challa led his ostracism from Earth. So yeah, for Godzilla this is personal. And what ends up happening here, while Godzilla's wrecking the place and Knull's symbiotes are bonding to the Wakandans, we then see a ship fly through. And it's done in a way where it's like, oh, this is the person who's gonna save everybody. And no, it's not Black Panther, but instead, it's Black Bolt, King of the Inhumans, Mr. Blackagar Boltagon himself. And I've always felt like Black Bolt's had one of them names where it's like, oh, you read this on a sheet of paper, you're like, yeah, this is a black guy. Nope. And when he gets there, the plan is for him to say something to Godzilla, anything, while the rest of the Wakandans continue to evacuate. And as Black Bolt approaches Godzilla, this starts to play out like your classic Western standoff, starting with Godzilla doing his iconic roar, followed by Black Bolt's tuning fork lighting up so he can focus the power of his next 4 words, as he breathes deep and tells Godzilla, cute roar, now die. And as expected, this attack knocks the scales off of Godzilla, just going through what was said to be the King of Monsters' impenetrable armor. And that was kind of funny, though I'm not sure if it was meant to be. But after Black Bolt does this, he does the really cool walk away, because now Godzilla's laid out and all the Wakandans are celebrating. But as soon as Godzilla starts growling, Black Bolt's slow and confident walk suddenly turns into a full-out sprint. And at no point did he even bother to look back, he just took off. And for good reason, because not only is Godzilla back up, with his healing factor being ridiculous, much like we saw in the series leading up to this, but now Godzilla is so pissed, to the point where he's just leveling the intergalactic empire, making Knull's job from here just easy, like an alley-oop, because Knull just sends in the symbiotes and they take everyone. And this goes on saying, for the first time in their history, the Wakandans fell easily. The hostile takeover of the entire universe was progressing with frightening speed. And the next time we see Black Bolt, he's basically on a t-shirt. So back at the Galactic Senate, after the Wakandans have fallen and Black Bolt's gone, these guys are all like, what chance do we have? And one of these dudes is like, one of the Skrulls is like, hey, can we at least destroy Earth before Godzilla kills us all? But then the point is made that if Godzilla and Knull stay on their trajectory, they're already heading for Earth. And everybody starts clapping when they hear that. But that quickly changes once they all hear someone say, attention, this is Captain America of Earth. And that's where all the clapping and cheering turns into boo. So Cap goes on by saying, understandable. Earth understands that Godzilla has not been neutralized as we'd hoped, and we are racing to meet the crisis. The Avengers are en route, the X-Men are rushing to reinforce the Shi'ar, and the Fantastic Four are recruiting powerful allies to our cause. The Guardians of the Galaxy have a plan to try and separate the kaiju from Knull. We will defeat Godzilla. And Spider-Man's over on the side like, or not. But now this brings in Vision, Iron Man, Captain America, Spider-Man, Blue Marvel, Captain Marvel, Wasp, She-Hulk, Ant-Man, and Black Panther. And along the way, Spider-Man catches a piece of a conversation that's going on between Vision, Iron Man, and Blue Marvel, where they're all talking about the solution to the Godzilla problem. And all Peter hears is Vision saying that he reviewed the proposal and that he finds it deeply flawed, both scientifically and ethically. And when Tony asks Adam what does he think, even Blue Marvel's like he's struggling to offer an alternative. And even though Spider-Man didn't catch the whole conversation, his spider sense is letting him know that wherever this is heading, it ain't good. And this is where Blue Marvel brings up how Forge and the X-Men once built a black hole gun, and the singularity would only exist for a fraction of a second, and how he believes that would surely be enough to kill the kaiju. So Peter tells him, don't we have enough problems right now without adding black holes? Am I the only one who's seen Interstellar? Matt Damon will kill us all. And what's funny is I recently saw some people arguing on Reddit on whether or not Matt Damon was in Interstellar, which was funny to see. But then it's here where the Guardians reach out saying that they've engaged the enemy, because now they're taking the fight directly to Knull's ship. And as part of their plan, Rocket has upgraded Nebula's cybernetics and fitted her with a neural shocker so she could use it on Knull as part of their big play. But once they board Knull's ship, things don't quite play out that way, because Knull just wrecks these guys, and as it turns out, he's a lot tougher than what they expected. And now this fight leads to the Guardians finding the creature called the Godworm that Knull's expecting to use down the line. And the whole Godworm thing makes sense when you think about Knull's history with dragons and the possibility of this being connected to the worm like the Elder God. But none of this goes that deep. This is just Knull's plot device. And when Knull tells him that the Godworm is how he's going to bring peace and quiet to life's absurd cacophony, Star-Lord's basically like, okay, cool, then that's what we need to destroy. Only for Knull to stop him before he can even get a shot. So Star-Lord reaches out to Rocket and he's like, hey, Knull's got something on board that we really don't want him to keep. Because really, when it comes to Knull and his plans for the Godworm, since he can't control Godzilla, Knull plans for his will to be done in the death that Godzilla leaves behind. And he's saying this to the Guardians without going into too much detail, but this moment creates an opportunity for Nebula to hit him with a neural shock, which instead shows her what Knull has planned. Because right away she sees a vision of Odin dead and Knull standing at the World Tree with the Godworm all over it. But this vision is interrupted when Knull breaks Nebula's arm. He's like, okay, enough with the spoilers. And then when we go back to Rocket, who's trying to get to them, he's just overwhelmed by symbiotes when they attack the Milano. Then we're told here the Guardian ship decompressed, and the void of space swallowed Rocket's screams. There was one soul who could hear the battle. At that moment in Asgard, Odin, the Allfather, rested under Yggdrasil, the World Tree. So Odin takes another swig of mead before preparing Asgard for what's to come. As he says here, hear me, Asgard, and raise the banners of war. We must prepare for a battle against the behemoth. Though it not be Surtur, it will surely be a match. So make ready to defend the realms. This conflict cares not if we want it. Godzilla shall be upon us. Make ready. And I'm not sure if it's the angle here, but this look at Asgard, it kind of reminds me of the map from Ultimate Alliance 3. Fingers crossed we get a part 4 sometime soon. And now after this, when we go to the Fantastic Four, who are currently in deep space, making their way to see an old friend and ask for a favor. But as they approach, there's a moment here where Sue tells Reed, like, okay, I know we've made a terrible miscalculation. And she asks him, like, hey, are you sure this isn't us getting ready to make another? And Reed just tells her, like, hey, we're preparing for multiple eventualities that we're hoping not to deploy. And this one's better than Tony's mini singularity, which right there goes back to parts of the conversation that Spider-Man missed earlier, when Tony, Vision, and Blue Marvel were just tossing around insanely dangerous ideas. But at this time with the Fantastic Four, we discover that they've made their way out here to ask Galactus for help. And right away, Galactus is like, yeah, I've seen what's going on out there. And at first, he basically tells them, like, why is that my problem? But Reed and Johnny make the very valid point of telling Galactus that Godzilla's out there destroying worlds. Lots of delicious worlds. So that's where they pitched the idea, like, hey, so maybe you want to try eating a lizard? I understand they're a delicacy on some worlds. So yeah, now this has set things up for both Galactus and Odin to take the fight to Godzilla. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to light a candle for Black Bolt or just drop a like and let me know in the comments what you're expecting to see once Godzilla crosses paths with Odin or Galactus. Cause I'm gonna tell you right now, we're just here to have fun and don't get too serious about a Godzilla story. Unless we're talking about the intergalactic empire of Wakanda getting destroyed, cause that ain't right in any universe. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.